So it's that time again. It's coming up to Christmas, and I think it's probably time to start the latest edition. Now, this is number 13, show 13 of the James Well radio show, broadcast to the universe. Cue titles.
James Well, the voice of reason on the James Well radio show.
Right, thank you very much indeed. Welcome to the programme. Nice to have you with us, all those people who've never been with us before. And our thanks, of course, to all those people who are involved with the James Well radio show. I'd like to give them all a mention. talentgb.com. If you haven't been on their site, go and check it out, talentgb.com, particularly if you are an entertainer and you want other people to find out what you do. Go to talentgb.com. Those of you listening to us via Audio Boo, justradio.net, coastradio.co.uk, mypicktv.co.uk put this program out as well, as does the new radio station for the London taxi driver, called Sherbet Radio. Remind everybody why.
Because it sounds like sherbet dab, Cockney rhyming slang for something.
Cab. And we've got trentsound.com, RFTK Radio, merseyradio.co.uk, cruisefm.co.uk. We are everywhere. If you have a radio station you would like to put out this program, then get in touch with us by
emailing the show, jameswellradio@gmail.com.
Very good. And Robbo, how has your week been?
My week has been great, and I'm prepared this week because this week I have a drink. That's my drink.
Hold on. That's mine.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Of course,
yeah.
Mine is a nice cold Coca-Cola.
Is it? Mine is a nice... I told you about that before, didn't I?
What?
I told you not to drink Coca-Cola.
Yeah, but Coca-Cola's got lots of money.
Yeah. Oh, well, they might sponsor the program. Actually, keep on drinking it.
That's it. Lovely stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about airport expansion. Probably only of any interest to those people living in the south. But it really it beggars belief, doesn't it? For those people who know the Thames estuary, whether you're in Essex. Oh, did I tell you I've got a new job?
You got a new job?
In February, I will be the new host of The Breakfast Show on BBC Essex.
The only way is whale.
The only way is whale. That's my my email at the BBC in Essex. And you can wake up the whale way.
Oh, I like that.
I'm waking up the whale way. I shall be hosting The Breakfast Show from the 3rd of February. So I shall look forward to that. And I know Essex well, of course. I live very near to Essex and I live very near to Kent. I won't tell you exactly where, because otherwise, if I tell you where, it will become a shrine, and I don't want that to happen. What?
It's nothing. I'm just thinking of my old van that's parked down the bottom of your road.
Why?
Well, I might have to move it.
Yeah, you will have to move it if we get all the fans coming round. But I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, look, I've got this. I'm really excited about this because I haven't done a breakfast show on a radio station for years. And they said, you're a bit like Doctor Who, aren't you? And I said, what are you talking about? Like Doctor Who? I said, well, you keep... Next year, by the way, is my 40th, because I started very young, my 40th year of being on the radio. I mean, I do a bit of television, I know, but primarily I'm on the radio, and I've been on the radio since 1974. And I kind of regenerate like Doctor Who, don't I?
Have you got a sonic screwdriver?
Yeah, and it's there, right? That's it.
Ah, right, okay.
All right. I can't remember how I got into this.
I have no idea either. You got a new job?
No. Yeah, no, I can't remember. I wasn't talking about that. What was I talking? Oh, yes. Okay. This is all about airport expansion because, of course, Essex, one side of the Thames estuary, Kent, the other side. Two areas very close. Everybody thinks, it's interesting. Let me just talk a bit. People think I'm a northerner. I'm not. I left London in 74 to get a job on the radio, and I ended up going to Newcastle upon Tyne. And that's where I started in radio in 1974. But I come from here, where in fact I can trace my family back to the banks of the River Thames to 17 so-and-so. But that's just, so I'm just back where I started. Cue for a song. Ha 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 ha. I don't know how I got into this. How did I get into this? Actually, what you want to do is get hold of my book. And if you don't win it in the competition, you should download it. Are we able to offer the download of my book free yet?
I'm in talks with Audible to see if we can give everyone a free copy.
Yeah, well, stay tuned for that. You might be able to download my book, which I spent a long time recording for free, but not this week. Now, so this is the whole business. So airport expansion. It's really, really necessary that we have more facilities for aeroplanes to come, land, take off in the capital. And I know lots of people say, well, why in the capital? Because of the capital, and people want to go there. And it's all right saying, well, why don't we have it in Birmingham and Manchester? Well, yeah, you have more facilities there, but you need to have more in London. The idea that Heathrow, the busiest airport, one of the busiest in the world, has only got 2 runways, is quite laughable. And somebody said to me the other day, and Robbo, as the producer, you know about all this technical stuff. Why don't we have aeroplanes that have retractable wings or wings that go up? Because apparently then we could fit more on the ground if their wings went up.
Bit like an Imperial spacecraft.
Yeah, why can't we have them do that?
I would imagine you could. Some planes do that.
Yeah, but
not the large ones.
Well, anyway, somebody get in touch and let us know. So, listen, this is the whole point of this. So there is, of course, this discussion at the moment about how airport expansion should happen. People in London get absolutely beside themselves, a lot of politicians too, if you mention, let's expand Heathrow. And so Boris, who's got absolutely flip all to do with anywhere outside London, wants to try and impose a new airport in the Thames Estuary, which will never happen. I don't care what anybody says. It'll never happen, because even if they say, yes, we're going to go ahead with that, the people who live around there won't allow it to happen. They will complain, and it'll never come to fruition. 30 years down the line, they'll still be trying to build it if they go that way. Now, here's the thing, and politicians know this. The only answer is to expand Heathrow. That's where people want to go. You can expand a bit. You've got a great airport in Southend now, which is near London. You've got one at Manston in Kent. You've got Stansted. You've got Luton. You've got Gatwick. You can expand a bit in all these places, but London Heathrow. You know, if you've not been to where Heathrow is, and loads of people have flown in, you wouldn't want to live there. I mean, apart from the airport, it's a junction of major motorways. You've got the M25 going around. You've got the M4 going out of London. You've got the M3 coming in further down. I mean, you just would not want to live in that area. Stick another runway in. Stick another runway in and do it not. Don't wait for another couple of years. We'll miss the boat. Everybody will start using Schiphol or Charles de Gaulle. They won't come to London. We'll miss an enormous amount of business. But the politicians who know that has to happen are trying to save face. So I did throw that out on Facebook a little earlier. Jamie Hibbert says, I'm not sure we really need an expansion. The airports are in the wrong place to start with. If we are to handle more air traffic, then I suggest a new airport in a better location. Well, Jamie, you see, it is what it is, mate. It is what it is. And we're at Heathrow, and that's where everybody knows. The name Heathrow is known all over the world. Leave it. Vinny in Durham says, City Airport should be expanded. It's nearest airport to the centre of London. Well, City Airport's a great airport. You can fly in and out. You can get into London quickly, but you can't expand it very much. It's not possible. Michael Watson said, I get the feeling that air industry is going to experience a contraction soon, so it will be a waste of money. More people are being forced onto the breadline. I can only see a reversal in the trend for overseas holidays. See, Michael, it's another thing. It's got nothing to do with holidays. It's got to do with business and the businessmen. It's the people who fly business class and the people who send, the enormous amount of freight that comes from air. We just have to do it, I think. Sandy says, I've never understood why they don't find somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Build a new airport. And most importantly, put in great transport links to it. Makes sense to me. Sandy, but the thing is, we need it now. You could put down another runway at Heathrow, and it could be done in a year, maybe 2 years. Andy Cox says, how about using Manston? I mentioned Manston's in Kent. New motorway roads, just build down to it. That's a good idea. Plenty of room to build it. Already one of the longest runways in the south of the UK. Millions saved on not having to tear down homes, spent in court costs and to police the huge amount of demonstrations. Manston, I think, is ripe for expansion. I agree. Scotty McClue, is he still around? Nope. Seaplanes are the way ahead. Thank you, Scotty. Good to hear from you. I always thought seaplanes would be a good idea. Why don't we use more seaplanes?
Fly them down the River Thames.
Yeah. You know, the only trouble is, of course, it's tidal. Now, there's an interesting story in the news at the moment about the use of drones. Those are those unmanned helicopters and planes that are being used increasingly to fight wars, although most of the time we're told that they're there for reconnaissance. So I think it's time we actually had a chat about that. And I thought to myself, who better to talk to about this than my old friend John Nichol? John, you may remember, of course, was the navigator of the Tornado that was shot down during the First Gulf War. John and his pilot were then paraded for the world's press to see, and I think for a couple of weeks we saw him and his pilot on the front pages of most of our newspapers, on our TV and radio news bulletins, and we heard their story, which was quite traumatic. John was locked up for around about 8 weeks. They were both captured in the desert when they managed to eject from the plane safely. For those of you who don't remember the story, quite a few years ago, they then had a shootout with Iraqi soldiers. They were captured. They were kept for 8 weeks, during which time they were tortured. They were told they were going to be executed. Eventually, we got them back. John Nichol has since then written a number of books. So I think what we'll do is we'll get on the phone and have a chat with John about this and maybe a few other things as well right after this.
You are listening to James and Rob on the James Well Radio Show.
John Nichol.
John Nichol, James Whale.
Hello, James. Are you all right, mate?
I'm very good. Now, let me introduce you first of all, because this program is well, just like all my programs, I talk rubbish, and that's how it goes. Just because this technology is rather new, you're sitting there in your home, I'm sitting in mine, the producer's sitting somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Wales. In a way, it's a bit like being in an aeroplane, isn't it?
Well, there's many different parallels in actual fact. I mean, on one basic level, everybody's trying to work together to get the job done as best they can. But of course, you're relying on technology to help you as much as possible. And of course, the bottom line is you've got to get the job done. So yeah, there's quite a few parallels.
Listen, just before we talk about the issues of these drones, and we obviously talk about your new book, The Red Line, which has some I couldn't believe it when we talked about this before, actually, that more people were killed in one night in Bomber Command than were killed in the rest of the RAF. Is that right? In the whole of the Second World War?
No, not in the whole of the Second World War. There was more men killed from Bomber Command in one night than in the whole of the RAF losses during the Battle of Britain. So everybody remembers the incredible bravery of the Battle of Britain pilots defending our shores, and how many of them gave their lives over a 4.5-month period. But people don't know that more men from Bomber Command were killed in one night, one single night on one single operation, than in the whole of the Battle of Britain. And it's that fact that really drew me to the subject.
Well, all right, let's talk about that first then. But why has it taken so long for people to be prepared to talk openly about what Bomber Command did?
I think one of the great problems was that in the aftermath of the Second World War, people looked on Bomber Command with distaste. I don't think there's anything. I don't think I'm seeing anything out of turn with that. Churchill himself ignored the achievements of Bomber Command, although it was his policy to bomb the cities, to attack Germany in the way that they were ordered to do. But when he realized that this whole policy of attacking the industrial heartland of Germany was going to prove to have been controversial. He distanced himself, as many politicians do and still do today. And I think that was part of it. You know, the terrible losses at Dresden, nobody can deny. The terrible losses at Hamburg, nobody can deny. And you know, people, on the other hand, people didn't really talk about their experiences during World War II. And what is sad in one way but gratifying for me is that now that these men are in their late 80s, 90s, and there's not that many of them left, they want to talk about their experiences, want to get them down on paper.
Do you know, that's a fascinating point as well, because in this day and age now of multimedia, we have, from the time when you and John were shot down together, I mean, your story was on the front page of all the newspapers. In a way, and I'm sure you're not offended by me saying so, but that's what led you to your fame, talking about the situation just after it had happened. But lots and lots of people involved in the Second World War, and before that a few years ago when there were still people in the First World War, none of them wanted to actually talk about it. Why?
Well, there was two things. I think if you go back to the Second World War, when people came home from the Second World War, everybody had been to war. Everybody had lost somebody. Even if you were back here in the UK, even if you were a housewife living somewhere in the UK, you had been touched by that war. You had lost people. You knew you had lost people. You may well have been attacked during the German bombing campaigns. Everybody had been touched by that war, and people didn't want to talk about it. It was a different time. People didn't talk about their feelings. People didn't wear their hearts on their sleeves. And so in that way, it wasn't the era to talk about. It wasn't the era to go to a newspaper and talk about your experiences, to sell your story, something that happens all of the time now, of course. And of course, you talked about multimedia at the beginning of that, James. You've got to remember, there was no media. People conducted their affairs by letter, and if it was a real emergency, by telegram, which could take a day or two. So letters home from the front could take weeks, sometimes months to get through. Letters to and from loved ones would take weeks. A telegram. Now, if we have the tragedy of a soldier being lost on the front line in Afghanistan, his or her next of kin will be informed in a matter of minutes, and that is not an exaggeration. There will be a team, a specialist team will arrive on their doorstep in a matter of minutes to deliver the terrible news. Back then, it was the telegram boy. You know, there's two stories in the book about the raid on Nuremberg, the Red Line. There's two stories there about two of the guys that died, and the first their families knew about it was when the telegram boy, 2 days later, 2 days after they were dead, so they'd heard nothing from their loved ones, knocked on the door to say, the telegram said, regret to inform you your son is dead. On one of them, because he'd actually been killed as he landed back in the UK, it went on to say, regret your son is dead, his body is in Sunderland, please collect it or we can arrange delivery. I mean, it's just cold beyond all reason. But then, you must also remember that there were thousands, hundreds of thousands of these telegrams going out. That night, the night that I wrote about in the Red Line, 545 telegrams went out just from Bomber Command. And
we're talking today, of course, of the losses in Afghanistan, which gladly are around 446, I think, at the moment. And that is a matter of great public concern. Imagine if we'd had the sort of media today we had then, people would have been doing.
You couldn't have fought the war. There's no doubt about it. The facts were concealed. There's no doubt about it. The facts even of this operation in the Red Line were concealed from the public because even then it was thought that, losing 97 aircraft in one night would be a real blow to morale. And it was a real blow to morale to those who knew about it. But, yes, nearly 450 in Afghanistan in a 10, 11-year period, all and each single one a tragedy in itself. And yet there we had 545 in one night. Of course, you could talk about the thousands on D-Day. You could take yourself back to the First World War and talk about the tens of thousands in 1 or 2 days. You just, it would never, ever have been allowed to go on if we were in the media age that we now live in. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest.
I think it's a good thing. I mean, I hope it's a good thing. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, we're still fighting wars, and the interesting thing is that the population was so much smaller then, so the percentage of people that were affected and killed and wounded, let's remember all the people wounded then, of course, was much greater.
Oh, but as I said, everybody knew somebody. You know, I mean, my mum lived in Newcastle, down on the coast during the Blitz. You know, and the family next door to her was killed in a bombing raid. You know, they had people from their church were killed. They had relatives killed. Everybody was touched by that war, which is again thank the Lord.
Sorry, just before we move on, I just want to ask you. You said that one of the guys was killed on landing back in Sunderland in the aircraft. An enormous amount of guys were killed, weren't they? Coming back, landing these aircraft that had been damaged.
Oh, this is one of the. It's a terrible thing to say, James, but it's one of the best stories in the book because of the tragedy. The pilot had got all the way to Nuremberg, was shot up by a German fighter. His aircraft was badly damaged. His part of his crew had to bail out because the aircraft was on fire. He went on to the target with a badly damaged aircraft, bombed the target, had no navigation, maps, no instruments, he got completely lost on his way back through Europe, as you would do on your own in a Lancaster, managed to find his way back, found the coast of England with his aircraft in tatters, coasted in over Sunderland, and was shot down by our own defences.
Oh dear,
and killed. He was awarded the Victoria Cross for his actions that night. But you know that the tragedy, the personal tragedy involved in that story. I interviewed his surviving sisters who were there when the telegram boy arrived. The tragedy involved in that one story is just a tiny little pinprick in the story of Bomber Command, in the story of the Royal Air Force, and in the story of the Second World War.
And of course, just as a matter of interest, it was Robin Gibb, the Bee Gees, sadly now gone, who actually was involved in making sure that there was a statue and a commemorative place in London for Bomber Command.
Very much so. I launched the appeal with Robin Gibb, 5 or 6 years ago now, for the Bomber Command Memorial, and he was key. He was absolutely pivotal in his role. And indeed, you may or may not remember when I stood in for you on one of your other radio shows. Robin came into the studio. He was only meant to come in for, I think, 10 or 15 minutes for a chat about why he was interested in Bomber Command and the memorial. And I think he stayed for 2 hours in the end, chatting, and there was so much interest in what he'd done, so much. I mean, he was an icon in the music business, in the celebrity business, in the entertainment business. But he was really, really engaged, really, really interested in Bomber Command.
He was a good bloke. I knew him well, absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you think your experiences in what happened to you actually made it easier for some of these guys that you interviewed about their experiences?
Oh, there's no doubt about it, James. You know, I mean, again, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but the reality is that many of these guys have never spoken about their experiences. They just don't want to. They bury them deeply. Many of them say, "Oh, we just got on with the job. We weren't affected by it," but they were affected by it. Many of them were deeply, deeply affected by their experiences. You know, I'm grateful that they can trust me with those experiences and to reproduce them. You know, I mean, it's important that I don't let them down. I mean, it sounds quite a rubbishy thing to say, but I feel a responsibility to portray their stories in the way that they would tell them to their own loved ones.
Well, on our last programme we did, I talked to Colonel Bob Stewart about the tragic story about Marine A, and I won't go into that now, but the fact that people are affected by being in a theatre of a war, I mean, I've known you for many, many years, and I know that you are now a completely different person to the person that came back just after that happened, and you must know that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm different. Listen, I was affected by my experiences. There's no doubt about it. You know, and as men, we're not very good at admitting when we're emotionally involved, and we're not that good at admitting. You know, we can see a physical injury. We can see somebody who's lost an arm, somebody who's lost a leg, but we can't see a mental injury, and it's one of the greatest problems that we have in the military. I do a little bit of work with a couple of our military charities on this, and people talk about a ticking time bomb. We have ticking time bombs living amongst us of young men, young women who have seen the most horrific things in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and they are going to explode. There's no doubt about it. There's going to be further terrible, terrible tragedies because of the things that some of our young men have seen.
And yet still the politicians and the higher-ups in the military who may not have faced some of these things don't seem to pay enough attention to them. You're absolutely right. I've had experiences where I've known people who have been attacked by somebody who's come back from the war. Tragically, they didn't know what they were doing. And they might have pretended they knew what they were doing, but they had no idea.
Again, if you don't understand, if you have got a broken arm, you can feel a broken arm, you can see a broken arm. If you have an injury of the mind, you can't see it, and so you don't know that there's anything wrong with you. You don't know why you're doing the things that you do, and that's the tragedy.
I mean, did you presumably, I don't think I've asked you this before, but presumably you spent, I think it was 8 weeks in captivity.
No, it was 7 weeks as a prisoner of war. Fairly short space of time, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, but you were threatened with death a couple of times. You were put through mock executions. That has to mess with your mind. When you got back, presumably you were given counselling and help.
Yeah, we had some. Again, we were the lucky of the 50,000 British servicemen and women who'd been involved in that conflict. We were the lucky ones who got a bit of help. There's no doubt about it. And indeed, the man who looked after us, the psychiatrist, Wing Commander Gordon Turnbull, went on to look after people like Terry Waite and John McCarthy. And so, it was him telling us how we might be affected, showing us what those wounds might look like, even though we would never see them. It was him that probably saved us. There's no doubt about it.
Do you think that talking about it has helped you?
I think that acknowledging it, as you know, James, I do a lot on the speaking circuit, corporate conferences and things, so I talk about it all of the time. But when you talk about it like that, you compartmentalize it, you bring out some of the stories. But I don't really talk about it other than that. I certainly, I don't talk about it to my wife or daughter or anything like that. And so, 20-odd years ago, certainly it helped to talk about it with professionals, but it's not something that I do that much now.
All right, I'm sure we'll talk about that more. I wanted to talk to you today about drones, and I'll tell you an interesting thing, of course. Broadcasters use drones now to get film, particularly. They can use a little drone helicopter, which is a lot cheaper. But the broadcasting organizations don't like to call them drones because of the military connotations. Today, we are being made, if you like, aware more of drones and how the war is fought from right here in the UK, with pilots sitting at a screen operating these machines out in Afghanistan or any other theatre of war. How is this going to dramatically change our thoughts on going to war?
Well, there's a change. There's no doubt about it. On one level, it helps us protect some of our military aviators, men and women, from the dangers of some parts of the front line. There's no doubt about it. But there's an offshot to that, in that politicians further think that you can wage war without casualties. But for the men who fly those drones and the women who fly those drones, they still have the responsibility that you would have as a tornado pilot or a typhoon pilot if you were over Libya, as they were a few years ago, if you were over Syria, as they nearly went to, as we were over Iraq. You still have that responsibility. It doesn't matter whether you're over the battlefield being shot at or are sitting back in the UK or in America dropping your bombs from thousands of miles away. So for the military men and women, I don't think the mindset is any different at all. It is the way it's perceived. It's the way people in the media perceive it. It's the way people in the public perceive it. That has changed. But the reality is a military weapon of war, which of course is what it is. It still requires the same skill, the same dedication, and the same moral courage as it would do if you were over the battlefield.
You see, the interesting thing, I've spoken to American drone pilots, and actually I've spoken to American pilots, and they both seem to think it's a bit like a computer game. And they have it in their mind, whether this is how they're trained, I don't know, that they don't get emotionally attached. You know, they don't think to themselves, well, if I miss the target, I may kill some innocent people or whatever. They are completely unemotional
I'd be interested to
about
know
it.
who you've spoken to, because none of the people that I know, whether they're drone crews, whether they're fast jet crews, whether they're British, American, Italian, French, I know of nobody who's ever described it as a computer game. You know, everybody, you know, people realize that they're dealing with life and death of the enemy, life and death of innocents if they get it wrong. And so I know of nobody who's ever referred to it as a computer game.
Well, these were Americans, and I wonder whether it was a little bit of bravado in that case.
You know, I mean, I've flown alongside many Americans over my time in the Air Force, and again, it's not a sentiment that I came across, that's for sure.
Good. Do you think that drones are we now going to see the end of people having to fly planes? I mean, could you end up being called up again, even at your late age, to be a navigator of a drone?
Well, I certainly wouldn't be called up. There's plenty of young, very experienced young men and women who can do that job. We'll still need pilots and weapon systems operators for years to come. I don't know how long that will be, but some of the most capable aircraft that we're still designing, the latest generation that'll be coming online, are all manned. Some of the oldest aircraft that we're flying, like the B-52 for the Americans, they're still manned. So there's still a role. But I suspect if you came back to me, James, if we were, you'd knock on my grave door in 100 years' time, and it might be very different then.
Do you think we're ever going to? I mean, you spend your life thinking about war, talking about the consequences of war, actually, rather than war. And one thing I think that you do very well is to make sure that people don't think it is a glamorous thing to be involved in. It is a necessity, and every nation needs its defence. But the reality is that the defense of the realm means that certain people are going to die, some people are going to be horribly mutilated, and it's not a pleasant place to be. And here in the 21st century, we are still doing it.
Well, but I mean, you could say here in the 21st century we're still doing it, or you could use it the other way and say, and since man walked out of a cave and looked at a branch and thought that's going to be handy to defend himself, I mean, we've always done it. Since time immemorial. So there's nothing new about this, and I think it will go on for as long as I could even think about it. In that, the notion of a world peace, the notion of religions that didn't collide, of ethoses that didn't collide, of the need for resources, whether that's food or water or land, that didn't collide. They've always collided, James, either on a massive scale or a tiny scale, and they'll continue to collide as far as I can see forever.
Why do you think this PR campaign has been launched today on the drones? Why are we being given insight into the drone command centers in this country, or some of them? The
drones, or as the military prefers to call them, unmanned aerial vehicles, they're controversial. But I think they're controversial for all of the wrong reasons. People think that it makes it easier to kill somebody. People think that it makes it easier to wage war. Well, in a small way, I suppose it does. But I can only say that from the men and the women who I've spoken to who operate those bits of military hardware, they are no different to the people that I flew with when I flew Tornadoes, the people that I met who were flying the Tornadoes in Afghanistan when I was out there just a few months ago. They are still exactly the same people. Indeed, some of them are literally the same people in actual fact. And the notion that it makes it more careless, that it makes them less respectful of life, I just don't see that notion.
John, compliments of the season. Thank you for your time. We'll talk soon. Have a good evening.
All the best. Have a great Christmas. All the best to you, James.
James Well, the voice of reason on the James Well Radio Show.
Now, we do have music on the show, of course, and we will continue to have music on the show. And I did put out a call some weeks ago to get some reggae on the program. Now, one of our regular contributors, and whose claim to fame is that we've mentioned him on practically every program since we started is Kev Le Taxi, who happens to be a Cardiff taxi driver. He may, if you listen in Cardiff, if you're in Wales, he may well have driven you. Well, he used to have a group, apparently, Peter Minifee and Snoozy Hardy. Is that right? Peter? Robbo, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Peter Minifee and Snoozy Hardy.
It does sound a bit sort of dubious.
So was that Kev Le Taxi and Peter Minifee and Snoozy Hardy?
Yeah, Kev played bass, apparently.
All right, okay. Well, it's not bad, but I thought we'd share it with you. So here we are, Kev Le Taxi and his mates, and Get Up.
Wow, 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 wow. Every day you get up. Children are laughing. A baby is crying. 'Cause the guns they are firing. Every day you get up. Wise meditating, the wicked are hating, the forces are gathering. Now the bombs they are firing. Every day you get up. Lies, ties and money, while nations grow hungry. And if the whole world united, only love would be firing. Every day you get up.
Right, so there we are. Kev Le Taxi, our Welsh wizard, and his mate Peter and his other mate Snoozy, a little bit of reggae, and Get It Up. Now, if you want to be on the programme, you've got a band and you want to be on the show, this is how you get in touch. Rob?
You can email the show on jameswellradio@gmail.com.
Which, of course, is a very good thing to do. And a word to our sponsors, of course, at Love Film. Our friends at Love Film have said that they will give us a 1-month free trial of Love Film. So all of you, and here we are, coming up to Christmas, ho, 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 here's a Christmas gift for all of you. Go to my website, jameswellradio.co.uk. Tell all your friends, click on the Love Film banner. You may be on the website now listening to this. Just go on there, click on Love Film, follow the links, download it. You can have free movies for a month over Christmas. Completely and utterly free from our friends at Love Film. So go and do that. Register for the free trial and you can watch as many films as you want. And for every trial, Love Film will help sponsor the show. So every time you click on it and download it, we get some money off them to make sure that we can continue to bring the program to you. So go to jameswellradio.co.uk and click the link at the top of the page. In fact, why not share that link with all your friends? And here's Robbo, I've just had a brilliant idea.
Yeah, go on.
You get one of those Christmas cards.
Yeah.
And you can put this as a present inside. You could say, go to jameswellradio.co.uk, click on Love Film, and you get a month of movies for free.
For free?
Yeah.
Okay.
What can I tell you? So do that. And whilst you're doing that, let me do the competition for you. Competition last week, Share the Post competition. Congratulations. You have won a limited edition, ho, 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 Merry Christmas with bells on, a signed copy of Ashley Tubridy's EP From the Inside Out, a signed copy of Moi's autobiography, Almost a Celebrity, and the winner is, Jackie Gant. You see, I said that quickly, Jackie, you notice, because I get fed up with all these reality programs on television where they say, and the winner is... Now, at this point, we've got a drum roll going on. Can you do a drum roll? Hang on.
Hang on a sec.
Hold on. Yeah. And then you get a close-up of the person's face sort of twisted into all kinds of expressions. And it goes on and on and on. So, look, Jackie Gant. Hello, Jackie. You're this week's winner. Well done. Now, if you would like to win all those wonderful things, because we've got so many here, they're blocking the studio up. We want to get rid of them. The Ashley Tubridy's EP, the limited edition. It can't be that limited. We give them 5 away already. Merry Christmas with bells on, and of course a signed copy of my book, and hopefully soon you'll be able to get a free copy of the audio version. Keep it here, as they say. All you have to do, by the way, to win those, there's no question, you share the link of this show on Facebook. Okay, we'll pick a winner from the share list. Very easy to do. Go to facebook.com/The James Well Radio, or just James Well Radio. Go to facebook.com/James Whale Radio. Share the link on Facebook, and then we will pick a winner for next week's program out of the share list. Now, Rob.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yeah.
I want to talk about the NHS, close to my heart, as... have I got time for this, Rob? Yeah, I have, haven't I?
Yeah.
By the way, anything we talk about on the show, if you want to bring up some points, if you want to comment, go to Facebook, do it that way, or email the show. The email address is...
jameswellradio@gmail.com.
jameswellradio@gmail.com. Just send us your thoughts there. Hospitals. I want to talk about the NHS, because this just seems absolutely ridiculous to me. Hospitals could face huge fines if they fail to maintain high standards under new NHS reforms, particularly if they don't offer as good a service at weekends as they do in the week. Now, as we all know, the NHS is always going to be stretched for money. So whose bright idea was it? And that no politician has yet put their hand up, but I ask, whose bright idea was it to fine our hospitals who are doing a very difficult job under very difficult circumstances because of the continual I don't know what's the continual interruption of politicians, that they're now going to fine them. So how's that going to make things better? Andrew Pate says, James, it's all bollocks. Oh, we talked about bollocks, didn't we, the other day? It's all bollocks. It's a government strategy to discredit the NHS and force privatisation. Now, Andrew, I don't think anybody wants to privatise the NHS. I really don't. But I know some people think it. I could be wrong, but I don't think they do. I think the politicians are frightened of the NHS. They're just concerned it looks as if they're not doing anything. And I think one of the stories is that NHS managers who get paid off, who sometimes get a huge bonus and kicked out, end up getting more work in the NHS. I think managers and administrators in the NHS who've been proved to be useless should actually not be able to get jobs within the NHS again. Mike Carrington says, the NHS were absolutely fantastic today with my mum. From the ambulance guys to the consultants, today has been hard. We should be proud of what we've got. Sorry, it's not good material for you, but it's true. Mike, it is excellent material. And I had cancer 14 years ago. I know exactly how hard medical professionals work. And it is not the nurses, the consultants, the doctors, junior doctors, GPs, whatever, that cause the problems in the NHS. Yeah, sure, there are from time to time going to be people who don't do their jobs very well. But it is the administrators and the politicians that cause the problems. And they have to stop interfering unless they know what they're doing. But listen, Mike, I am really pleased to hear things went well with your mum today. Annie Edmonds says, yes, after experiencing a weekend left for dead in an A&E waiting room, definitely things need to be improved. Well, at least you're not, Annie. Jeff Hobbs says, where will the money come from to pay these fines? You see, that's my point, Jeff. You know, the money comes from you and me, and if we start fining the NHS, it's just balmy, absolutely balmy. Gillian Godin says, too many people go to A&E with minor ailments and should be turned away. Yeah, I think actually people who aren't seriously ill who go to A&E should be charged, perhaps. Mary Buckley says, the NHS and the staff of the Royal Preston Hospital couldn't be faulted when I was whizzed in by ambulance the other week. This government is an absolute disgrace. It's blatantly obvious that their only aim is to sell off the NHS to the highest bidder. Whatever happened to From the Cradle to the Grave. Thank you very much indeed. The NHS needs our support, and it also needs the support of our politicians.
James Well, the voice of reason on the James Well radio show.
Right, I think it's time for another guest. Let's give my old mate Russell Grant a call. I know he's in pantomime. It's that time of year. Ho, ho, ho. Robbo, give him a ring.
Okay, I'll give him a ring right now.
Give him a ring. More tea, Vicar. I don't mind if I do.
Oh, thanks for reminding me.
Now, if we get Russell on this call, he's in his dressing room. But he is on stage as I speak.
Hello?
So we might have... Russell, James Whale.
Oh, hi, James.
Have you just come off?
I have. I've just blown off from Oz.
Do you need time to sort of shower and get together, or are you okay for a bit of a chat now?
No, let's do it now, love, because then I can go off and get a bit of tea before the second show.
All right. Well, listen, we're live now, as I always tell people. But of course, these calls are recorded for training purposes.
Oh,
I don't know why.
Really
I don't know why they say that. Every time you get some of these people, they say, "Oh, it's being recorded for training purposes."
All right.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
I don't know. So, listen, what pantomime are you in this year? Tell everybody.
I'm doing for the very first time Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, who I referred to as little men throughout the whole show. And we don't quite know why, because the posters say Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's at a little theatre called the Lighthouse Theatre in Kettering in Northamptonshire. Lovely little theatre, about a 600-seater, and it's going to run for 3 weeks, because this year I decided, James, having done panto for many years, I wanted a short run. Otherwise, you find that you're wishing everybody a Merry Christmas well into February.
And it's not fun, is it? I mean, by the time you get to February, you're thinking of spring and possibly summer.
I'm thinking of my birthday, February the 5th, so I don't want everybody else to be thinking of Christmas. Then they could be going out getting me cards and presents.
Now, you're not playing one of the little people. Who are you playing?
Well, it's myself playing myself. Since doing Strictly Come Dancing, which was the most amazing television program I've ever done in my life, and it took me back to my original profession and career, which was performance, acting and singing. And so this role has been created to me by Paul Hammond, the producer. And I basically am playing the Wicked Queen's Astrologer Royal. And all I do whenever I go on is dance. I look at the stars a couple of times, but all I do is dance. And then
Did
I
you
go
know?
sit
Did you
in.
know before Strictly that you had such good rhythm?
Well, because I've been brought up in musical theatre. I mean, 35 years ago, I was in Hans Andersen with Tommy Steele at the London Palladium. I was in Tom Brown's School Days at the Cambridge Theatre with my friends Simon Le Bon and Pete Jekyll. So it was always my background. Astrology was only ever a hobby. It was not something that I was ever thinking of doing for my career. And then, of course, in 1978, pictures went round the world of me presenting Her Majesty the Queen Mother with her chart. Hence the name Astrologer Royal, which, of course, was given to me by the media at the time.
Do you know the first time that I ever interviewed you? You won't remember. I was, fun enough, I was working for the BBC then, as I am at the moment now, and I was working for BBC Derby, and
I
in the
remember that. I
Midlands.
do remember that, James, because that came Yorkshire Television, didn't it?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I interviewed you, and I think you were the astronomer. This was about 1980. 1979, 1980. And I
That
think
would
you
have
were the
been a year
astronomer,
after the Queen Mother's
astrologer.
presentation.
Yep. But for TV Times, weren't you?
Yes, I was. I was writing for TV Times, absolutely correct. I was headhunted from Tatler magazine. I mean, Tina Brown, who of course in America is iconic in the magazine world, married Harold Evans. I believe she edits or is editor-in-chief or something of Vanity Fair in New York, and she was my editor at Tatler. And that was my first magazine I ever wrote for an astrological column. And then I was headhunted and joined TV Times. You're absolutely right.
I mean, Strictly has kind of reinvigorated, not that you needed reinvigorating really, but Strictly has reinvigorated you, hasn't it?
Oh, it did. I'll tell you what it did for me. It took me back to my true profession, which is performance, and the area of life that I absolutely love. I mean, you know, looking back at my career, I was in programs such as On the Buses, Doctor in the House, all of these sitcoms that people know. I worked with great comedians like Hilda Baker and Eutha Joyce, and it was so wonderful. I loved my career, and I was very successful in both television and theatre. Then the astrology came along, and basically it took hold of my life. So to come back and do Strictly, I'd never danced before, and to get a partner like Flavia Cacaccia, who is just amazing. She saw in me the musical theatre side. So everything she choreographed then played right into my hands or my feet.
And are
the
you
British
still in
public,
touch with
it's
Flavia?
awesome. Yes, we brought out a dance fitness DVD because I've lost 11 stone in weight. And,
11
we brought out a
stone?
dance fitness DVD called Zalza, Z-A-L-Z-A, and we sold 20,000 copies of it this year.
Whoa. So when we spoke a while back, you were in two minds as to whether to retire to your little cottage in Wales.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're not going to retire now?
Well, I did in a way because I was caring for my grandmother who had Alzheimer's. And when my grandmother died, being her carer, I didn't really have much left going for me in my life. And so therefore, I decided, I can't be bothered anymore now. The RussellGrant.com website was doing well. So I thought what I'd do is I'd go back to Snowdonia and just provide the content for the website, which is what I did. But the thing is, of course, I got fatter and fatter and fatter because I didn't go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything apart from writing the column for the newspapers and magazines and the website. And so strictly came along at the right time, because I think if it hadn't come along, I'd have probably popped my clogs by now. And I mean, I'd had 2 heart attacks, prostate cancer, skin cancer, became diabetic type 2, and all those things which come through being morbidly obese.
But you're not, it's not your time. As you know, I had cancer 14 years ago.
I do. Yeah.
And people, the good thing about talking to people like you, and I hope when people hear my story, being diagnosed with cancer does not mean that it is the end. Sometimes it's a bit of a wake-up call, but it doesn't mean it is the end.
Like me with my 2 heart attacks.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously you're pretty difficult to kill.
Who's saying the same as you?
You know what they say, only the good die young.
Well, we must be a couple of wicked old sods.
Listen, you must be incredibly fit. I've done pantomime. It is the most strenuous and quite often the most stressful thing anybody can do in their lives.
It is incredibly exacting.
Russell, I'll let you go and get yourself, because you've got another show to do.
Absolutely. It's non-stop in Pantoland, but January the 5th, it's all over, and then I go back and start some new productions next June, and I'm absolutely thrilled. I'm going to be a co-producer of a brand new show called Tango Motion at the St. James's Theatre Victoria. It's full of the most fabulous music and passionate tango dancing.
Well, I'm going to come and watch, and we'll go and have a drink or something to eat afterwards.
It would be my pleasure, James. We've known each other for so many years, and I'm glad to hear you're still going strong. And I'm also glad to hear you're alive.
And me as well. Listen, Russell, thank you very much indeed. And anybody in and around the Northampton area, get along to the theatre, go and say hi to Russell and see the show. Only on for a week or so after Christmas.
That's right. Just a couple more weeks. Kettering, Northamptonshire, the Lighthouse Theatre.
All right, take it easy, love.
Thanks a lot, James. Lots of love. Happy Christmas.
And to you,
Bye.
Russell. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye. Right. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Where were you then? You bloody went, didn't you?
I went out for another can.
You did, didn't you?
Yeah.
Just left me prattling on.
Well, I thought, you and your lovies.
Yeah, I know. Say goodbye, Rob.
Goodbye, Rob.
Goodbye, James.
Goodbye, James.
Goodbye, Rob.
Goodbye, Rob.
Goodbye, James.
Goodbye, Jake. Can I stop saying it now?
Yeah, just let's go.
Okay.
James Well, the voice of reason on the James Well Radio Show.
You're listening to the James Well Radio Show. For more information, visit www.jameswellradio.co.uk. Why not check us out on Facebook.com/James Well Radio Show, or follow James on Twitter @the James Whale. James Whale, the voice of reason.